Hey, what's up, guys? This is TBone here, and we are back for another episode where I get to talk to somebody from the Legendary community. So, on air with someone in Legendary. And today I've got Earl Winterbottom with us, and I'm very excited to have the special guest because he has been in the game for a very long time, and I would love to hear some perspectives from him. So, Earl, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, definitely. It's a pleasure. So Earl, you've been in the game for quite a while. Can you tell me like approximately how long ago you started playing Legendary?
Oh, sort of well over a thousand days. I could just quickly look on my phone and see, but it's been quite a long time.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely been. I think you started even before they went global, and so you've been in the game since beta time frame, right?
Yeah, so I think they did an initial launch in sort of Australia and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that group of people was in the game first. So yeah, when I first started playing, there was no such thing as guilds or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where I don't even know what it's like pre-launch, and so what was the game like during the beta phase? So was it just a few select people that joined? How was it for you at the time, and what really got you started with that game?
It's actually my son, who was probably 8 at the time. He'd started playing, and he wanted me to play with him, so he got me to download the game,
Okay.
along with his mother, who also plays the game as well.
Oh wow. Okay.
Um, so yeah, we all downloaded it and were playing with him. He quit after about a month, but yeah,
Mhm.
I'm still here,
Okay.
sort of a thousand days later. So at the time, there was just the map,
Hmm.
uh, just the quests to go through, and yes, it was a very, very sort of small selection of cards.
Okay.
Not a lot of synergies between them, and the abilities are pretty vanilla.
Okay. Were those the same cards, the 3-star cards that we see and are familiar with now, or were they even different back then?
No, yeah, so they're those the 3-star cards that you get as drops from the map now are pretty much
Okay.
the only cards in the game.
I see. Cool. And so, what really sort of kept, so you've been playing for a long time, so you've seen a lot of the evolution, and so just kind of curious, what's really captivated you for the game, and sort of like, how how have you sort of evolved as a player? Really, like like so you started because your son asked you to play, and then you kept going, so you must have enjoyed it quite a bit.
Yeah, well, actually, I didn't to start with, so I was just used to play on the map, and it was pretty boring.
Hmm.
So then I stopped playing for a while, and then the introduction of guilds came out,
Okay.
and then so I was playing in a guild initially, just a sort of a New Zealand-based team.
Hmm.
I think it was called Nati, and I thought we were pretty good at the time, but we were pretty bad. Um, so I don't think anyone was really spending any money
Hmm.
at the time when then events sort of started happening, and yeah, I think I can't remember exactly sort of how the events evolved, but there was only generally one card, so you just buy one event card and that was it.
Right.
So you could buy multiple copies of the same card, but there wasn't really sort of any synergies between the abilities apart from like the damage multiplier.
Right.
So you could literally, I mean, if you had one event card, um, you could do sort of pretty well in an event,
Hmm.
but it was also required a lot more teamwork because you couldn't do much damage. The sort of bosses and especially in Slayer was super super hard. So and keys were really scarce as well. So the only way you could get keys was at restock. There was no farming.
Hmm.
Um, so people in the top 10 had generally been ones who'd sort of spent a lot of money on packs and had a lot of keys. So sometimes you'd sort of jump in and you'd hit a boss, and then it would, bosses would just expire all the time because no one had keys. So you were kind of quite dependent on your friends list as well. So in those early slayers, having sort of people who were had a lot of keys, um, to be able to rally them to come in and kill your bosses.
Hmm.
Similarly within the guild, often sort of much more so than now, there probably only one or two people in the guild that were actually doing the hitting.
Hmm.
So in that guild, that was me. I wasn't. I thought at the time I was spending quite a bit, but not not to the levels that I got to. Um, so then I moved to another clan called Seven, I think, and
Hmm.
that guild had a couple of people who used to be in like ex-members of kind of SS, I think, and I can't remember a couple of other guilds, I think.
Hmm.
But then he kind of moved on to this guild, and there was one guy in there. I can't remember his name. His name was Bad Boy, and he was the first player that I ever played with that would actually go completely ham. So he'd buy sort of 5 event cards, and he'd have sort of hundreds and hundreds of keys.
Okay.
But the whole guild was just kind of centered around when he was online. So,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
when he was online, things died. When he wasn't online, sort of nothing died.
Okay.
Um, so then, I started, spending more and sort of playing a bit more.
Hmm.
And then he kind of quit. And then again, it was this kind of sometimes in a situation like that, sort of, you felt a lot of pressure to spend and buy cards because you're the only person that can actually kind of hit and do damage. So there's sort of an expectation that every event you're going to have the deck and you're always going to be online and you're always going to be hitting and you're always going to be. So that got like a bit of a drain. So I wanted
Hmm.
to play for kind of a higher guild.
Okay.
So I applied to join War Beasts,
Okay.
and Ellery told me no, that I couldn't join. That she they were only taking people in like the global top 50 at the time.
Okay.
And then I applied to join SS. They'd asked me to join a couple of times before, and I'd said no because I felt guilty about the guild that I was in.
Hmm.
And then I asked Emily Wu, who was the leader at the time, if I could join. And then the recruiter who I'd rejected, he said to her that he didn't want me in the guild, so I didn't join. So then I joined a guild called Hamo at the time,
Hmm.
which would eventually become sort of Monkey Tree. So yeah, that was kind of how
Okay.
things got to that point anyway.
Yeah, no, that's just really really interesting history right there. So the fact that you were rejected by Warpies at the time, I think that's funny history right there. And now Alera was actually she worked for a network at the time, right?
She did. So that wasn't. I don't think it was that widely known at the time that she worked for Network.
Hmm.
I think she was kind of doing a similar job that Sniperweed does or should do in terms of being like a kind of community manager.
Right. Okay.
Um, but then when it became kind of widely publicized that she
Hmm.
was working for Network, she kind of stepped aside from the guild, and
Right.
that's where this whole sort of Warbeast of devs things comes from.
Hmm.
So at the time,
Right.
everyone just thought, oh, Warbeast get free keys, Warbeast get free cards, Warbeast get access to a beta server to practice events before they happen, and like all that type of stuff.
Okay.
But that's all not true, of course.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely very it's very different landscape back then obviously. And from my from what I've seen, when I started playing, you've already sort of established yourself as someone who's pretty well known. In fact, you had your own line account as well. You were already with I think Monkey Tree at the time, and it was one of the top guilds too. So War Beast, Monkey Tree, I think War Tanks at the time, they were all really well known. And so you had a line chat which is still going strong right now, and it's called Thanks Earl. And can you tell me a little bit about that and sort of like what you had sort of started that chat for?
Yeah. So when I about the time that I joined Tree, I think that's when. So there was still only one card per event. Then there became two. Then there became ultra rares, and then there became,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc. Um, so I was in a couple of the line chats that were kind of help channels, and to be honest, a lot of them used to kind of piss me off because the people that were kind of moderating them and um, you know sort of talking them, they didn't even own any of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was also around the time where I was kind of getting annoyed at Network because they just put out like one week a deck could be really good and another week it'd be trash, and
Mm-hmm.
you never really got to kind of see the synergy of the deck
Mm-hmm.
beforehand or how it would unfold like you do now. You just had to kind of buy the cards and see.
Right.
So I kind of created Thanks Earl um, as a channel where the idea was that I'd go and buy the event deck. Um, like an idiot, whether it was good or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'd kind of play with it, and then I'd sort of tell people if the deck was good or not, and then
Mm-hmm.
I'd sort of help people with the deck builds and whatever else.
Right.
So when the channel first started, some of the guys that I played with that were also whales, like kind of Aspie and Windsor,
Mm-hmm.
they'd be doing the same thing. They'd be buying all the cards so they could help answer questions as well. And then, people like Katie and such joined. So
Mm-hmm.
it became like a really kind of informative channel. And it was also one where people could sort of speak reasonably freely because some of the other channels were kind of quite
Right. Yeah.
heavily moderated.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely a sort of speak your mind type channel, but I know that for a long time it was also very much a hey, let's see what what Earl has to say. I think, in fact, a lot of people would say, how does the event deck work? Well, we'll wait for Earl to get the deck, and then we will find out. And I definitely appreciated that as well. But I think this is also probably a good opportunity to talk about like so you mentioned the word whale, and that this is definitely a term that many people kind of throw around. And for me personally, I've always kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit because there's different types of people that play the game differently. They get enjoyment out of it in different ways. Some people choose not to spend, some spend. And so, just from your perspective, as somebody who has invested quite a lot into the game itself, just kind of curious, how do you feel about sort of like like sort of just from your perspective, right? So, how did you feel about the investment you've made into the game, really?
Yeah, I was a little bit philosophical about it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yes, I probably could have brought a car and a boat and whatever, but I did spend kind of a lot of time in the game, and we
Mm-hmm.
did sort of have some really good times.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite weird because I spent a lot when I was playing, so I'd usually do I just buy whatever the best deck combination was going to be.
Right.
Sort of pre-luck though,
Mm-hmm.
there were some decks where
Oh,
you
okay.
could open. Oh my god, I think it was a Sinbad event or the Aladdin event. I opened one Sinbad and I wanted another one,
Mm-hmm.
and I opened 22 tier sevens and I didn't get one.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
I've had other instances like that in what's another one, the Farah.
Mm-hmm.
That card when that came out, that deck was incredibly powerful.
Right.
Um, you could pretty much use that for all events. Um, and again, I would have opened, oh, I reckon close to 30 to try and get five, and I only got two. So,
Right.
and I guess kind of the mentality behind it was, when we were really competitive for a
Mm-hmm.
while there. So when the guild changed from sort of Harmo to Tree,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, we really wanted the guild to be successful,
Right.
and sort of attract sort of new players to it. So we
Mm-hmm.
were investing sort of quite a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it was kind of Tree War Beasts kind of won to every event for
Mm-hmm.
ages,
Right.
um, we probably had bigger spenders than them,
Mm-hmm.
but they would get much better turnouts at frenzies than we would. So it was kind of um, we'd probably do well in Commander
Mm-hmm.
because we had so much more keys than everyone else. But yeah, sort of Slayer, we just found it like really, really difficult to
Okay.
kind of keep up with them at Frenzy.
Right.
So then, yeah, as they started introducing kind of more and more things,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know, it was never the money. Like, I mean, I could obviously afford to do it. But then, when I sort of semi-retired and we sort of split the guild into uh, Tree, dollar signs, which was going to be the event focus guild, and then Tree would be the GVG focus guild at the
Mm-hmm.
start. Um, but yeah, I ended up actually spending more money when I retired. I don't even know how that happened. Um, but sometimes it's really fun. Like it's really fun to
Right.
get, just to have sort of five MCs and five relics and just
Mm-hmm.
obliterate a boss on the first turn. And you can frenzy really quickly, and
Right.
so yeah, it can be kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of got to the point though where I felt like Network would just sort of starting to take the piss a little bit though, because the rewards haven't really changed in the last probably 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So sort of commensurate with the investment that you make in an event. So the amount of money and the amount of time you put in, the return you get is an absolute pittance.
Hmm.
Um, Similarly with even the VIP stuff. So these are things that they've been promising for years that they were going to, we're really looking at this, something's going to come out, things are going to change.
Right.
And they never really got any better.
Right.
And then, Dan or whoever would always say that, we'd prioritize something else. But the things that they were prioritizing were nothing that anyone had asked them for. And they were all things that were kind of, generating new revenue or sort of really poorly tested game modes and stuff like that. So I just started getting sort of a bit disillusioned
Hmm.
with them. It became more about me not wanting to give my money to them rather than having a problem kind of spending the money, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Yep.
Um, but there are and there are whales and then there are whales. So I used to play with a guy called Scribe, um, who and another guy called Sorwin, who again just sort of great guys, great players.
Hmm.
But if they decided to spend, it would just be kind of out of this world.
Okay.
Similarly, there's been some players in War Beasts over time as well. I can't remember the guy's name now. Who's the
Okay.
shipping guy? What was his name? Um, so there's always someone that spends more than you.
Right.
So no matter how bad you're feeling after an event, there's always someone when you can look at them and be like, okay, well, they spent more than me, so I
Right.
don't feel so bad.
Right. 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 It's like, well, that person did that much worse, right? Spent that much more. I definitely have heard a lot of stories like that as well. The 22 tier 7, I think, has been immortalized as those kind of stories have definitely been passed around to kind of say, well, back then it was a lot worse. And so you mentioned that this happened before luck came about, and luck, the whole concept of luck also went away. I mean, like, it came and went, and that went into now the crystal event where you no longer have luck anymore. It's really just increased chances of getting something, and that happened probably near the end of this year, last year or so. And so you've been semi-retired since then. You've been focused on mostly GVG, from my understanding. And I was actually,
Yes.
yeah, and I was actually going to ask, and you provided the answer already. There's two tree guilds. There's one with the dollar sign, and there's one that's not with the dollar sign. So you're currently in the monkey tree without the dollar, and that is focused mostly on GBG, correct?
Yeah. So Tree after Monkey King, who founded Tree after he retired and made me leader.
Mm-hmm.
I was very very lucky. I had like the best council uh, ever. Like the guys that I played with, still it was awesome. So there was Windsor, Caliban, uh, Tila, uh, who I said, Windsor, Caliban, Tila, Echo, um, Aspie, and Demi.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then later, G Bowler uh, joined as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that group of people were just an awesome group to play with. They really sort of held the guild together. We did so much work. It was a really good time.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we just got kind of burnt out playing events. Like it was just becoming too much.
Right.
Just trying to keep up with uh, those damn war beasts every event. And that's one thing too that I will say. People can say what they like about them, but I've got like so much respect for sort of War Beast and Katie and everyone who's sort of played with
Mm-hmm.
them before,
Mm-hmm.
just to be able to do that every week for
Oh yeah.
years and years. It's just that's crazy. That's crazy.
The amount of effort that's required, I can imagine, is just incredible. I can only imagine, and you haven't been, sort of the direct competitor, for you to be able to say that, that definitely speaks volumes to the effort there. And so now that you sort of move into a, sort of guild versus guild focus group, and having gone through sort of, how you've sort of your experience from being a big spender to someone who just kind of feels like I'm not really willing to spend because of the changes that have happened. Now that you're in the guild versus guild, sort of like GVG based guild, how has it been for you? Does it feel more relaxed for you now? Do you feel like you can enjoy the game a bit more? Like, how has the experience been for you, and what is it like to be in a guild versus guild focused guild?
It's much better in some ways, but not in others, and a lot of it kind of depends on the game meta at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, Guild versus Guild is really, really easy for me because I've got um, a really good green tech deck
Hmm.
with the green relic, so I can blast through pretty much anyone in about a minute and a half.
Oh
So,
wow. Okay.
so there's no sort of planning required or anything.
Mm.
Yeah, I've got probably two decks that I can just use to kill pretty much anybody.
Okay.
Um, Prior to that, kind of depending on the meta, sometimes Guild versus Guild would take hours and hours of the day.
Hmm.
Um, at the moment, it's kind of largely Mad and the rest of the council that do it. I don't really do anything anymore. But the amount that would go into sort of planning the attacks.
Hmm.
So back earlier in the guild versus guild days, we would assign people individual attacks. So we'd go through every single deck. We'd work out um, who would be the best person to attack them. We'd help people out with their deck construction.
Hmm.
We'd sort of here use this, and then go and practice. And for a while there, it would take sort of 30 or 40 minutes just to kill someone, just sort of using turn delay and or
Hmm.
waiting for the intensity to build up to like 2000 before you kind of went through.
Okay.
So that was sort of quite stressful still. A lot of people feel a lot of pressure to perform because you've just got your one attack, and if you
Right.
stuff it up, then you got a zero. And there's been seasons where people crashing or people just
Mm.
forgetting to activate in the card has been the difference between kind of first and fifth.
Right.
So there's still kind of a lot of pressure there, and you still need to spend. I think sort of once upon a time you could just kind of retire. You had your attack cards, you had your defenders, and that was fine. But
Hmm.
now with the sort of shift in the warden power and the awakenings, and
Hmm.
um, you need to keep investing, both in the wardens but also in your attack decks.
Right.
Because so now I'll buy a deck if it comes out, if it's good for GVG. So like
Hmm.
um, that light deck the other week, I brought that, and that was probably the first Gen 3 deck that I'd spent
Okay.
money on, and it was actually kind of interesting because I was quite lucky because I had a shitload of dust and whatever else built up.
Okay.
So I got sort of the two cards for nothing, but
Hmm.
it didn't feel as expensive. I think I spent maybe $700 or $800 on it, which before I would have spent, oh, I can't remember what the most I ever spent on a deck was, probably over 2,000.
Mm.
Um, kind of depending on the event. So um, yeah, I still don't really have a feel like if some of the Gen 3 changes have been good or not.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, so GVG it's relaxed, but it's not. You don't have that kind of grind of having to play events for sort of 14 hours a day.
Hmm.
But yeah, that time when you are playing it is pretty sort of high pressure.
Yeah, I see. I'm looking at your defender team right now, and it looks like you're going dark. Right. So is that your? Do you switch it out at all, or do you keep it the dark team?
Kept it dark. I probably could have had multiple colors. So when the malls first came out, those sort of blue cubes
Hmm.
that it took to 6 star a mall, they were really, really rare. They were really, really hard to find.
Right.
So to specialize in an element over multiple colors, yeah, it would just sort of been sort of time prohibitive. I probably could do it now. I think probably dark. I would have said dark was still the strongest up until that light deck
Hmm.
came out the
Yeah.
other week, which just just absolutely blows through it in like half a second.
Right.
Um, but it always comes in peaks and troughs. Like it's there have been times when green was really strong, but now
Hmm.
there are so many decks that will blast through green, or then blue was really good for a little
Right.
while, and I think probably fire maybe in the best place at the moment
Okay.
without having really looked at this event deck.
Okay. So, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was just, how long it used to take to actually get through the decks. And this is probably because before the Generation 2 relics, GVG relics came out, I'm assuming. And so you are now running a green Earth Tech deck, and I'm assuming that uses the Dragoon as well as the Earth relic. Is that correct?
No, I don't have the Dragoon. I just use the plus 400 event main card, but
Okay.
I've got that like 5 times awakened, and then the other cards are 5 times awakened, and
I
then
see.
or nearly. Actually, they're probably two or three, and then I've got sort of mostly the enchanted relics for that deck and they're all maxed out. So it's I can kill pretty much anything with that,
Okay,
as long as there's not a birthright gem silence or a birthright immunity in the deck.
I see. So let me get this straight. So you don't have the Dragoon, but and you also don't have the Gen 2 GBG relic. So it's just your cards
Oh
are
no,
just.
I do.
Oh, you do have
No,
that.
I've got
Okay.
the. Yeah, yeah, you need that. You need that.
Okay.
Without
And
that, you can't dispel the counter attack.
okay, so it dispels the count. It dispels the buff, and also it really buffs the health, right? So are you able to survive the first hit with that relic in? Because I've heard people say that you can't because of that. So I was kind of curious, or is it because you can revive using the relic? That's how you can continue on.
Yeah, you can revive. That's how I continue. If you six start it, you hit the dragoon. I
Hmm.
think the health is really high. I've heard of people who can take sometimes two hits.
Hmm.
With decks now.
Right.
So again, that's definitely sort of a valid tactic.
I see.
And it is good that that it is evolving because for a very long time it was just that kind of delay, delay, delay,
Hmm.
or kind of build up intensity and then sort of delay immunity and then there'd be sort of some sort of combination of wardens that were just kind of unkillable and then another card would come out. So um, it is, I do, while I do slag off the devs a lot, I do kind of feel for them and that it is a very complicated ecosystem to balance
Hmm.
because, you know, you, you could release a card or a relic, and they have done it in the past many times, which kind of has an unintended consequence
Yeah.
on sort of different game modes.
Hmm.
I remember probably the one I remember the most, apart from the Halloween deck, obviously, that sort of changed the game forever,
Yep.
um, would be the Chichulu, the
Mm-hmm.
original one
The
where it had
fire one.
the fire one where it had
Hmm.
zero cooldown.
Yep.
Um, and literally, if you had sort of a couple of those, you didn't have to buy a deck anymore.
Right.
Because at the time the damage was so low, if you could just sort of generate power gems in the corner and then just sort of build up like four or five of them, um, that was when the game was actually quite fun because it actually was sort of quite skillful having to manage the generation of power gems yourself in the
Hmm.
corner. The cards for you had to kind of do the matching to get them.
Yep.
The strat was to kind of build them all up in one corner and then just use the choose to change them, and then you could use those for all events. So
Yeah.
then they just that was probably one of the few times where they've just outright nerfed a card,
Hmm.
deliberately because people were just not spending any money.
Yeah, and I know that I was actually there for that. I didn't get the card, or at least I got the card, I couldn't evolve it. And then they said, oh, zero turn cooldown because it's a Slayer card was too powerful. They made it into a 3 turn cooldown card, which obviously caused a huge uproar. And then I remember what they did was they fixed it by saying, well, the dust value for those cards then got doubled. So you could actually sell a 6 star card for 800 dust.
Yeah, yeah,
And then unfortunately they nerfed that as well and turned that into a 20 dust car. So I can feel, I can understand why a lot of people are really frustrated with it. But I think it's really fascinating just kind of hearing about your experience now playing with the guild versus guild, sort of like planning your attacks, and sort of with the Generation 2 relic. Obviously things are a little different because now you don't have to spend hours trying to practice. But do you feel like it's now a little too easy with the introduction of that? Like, so now what is it like, interaction wise with the top guilds? Because right now a tree is I think you guys came in sixth in the last guild versus guild season.
yeah.
And so just, congrats by the way for, being in the top 10 to me is always an achievement. And
It's a
so
fail. It's a
it's a
fail
fail
as
for
far as
you.
we. Yeah, yeah. We're
Uh,
like pretty gutted about it
okay. But,
because
just, okay, sorry, go ahead.
sorry, just from it's interesting the guild versus guild too because like
Hmm.
from a recruitment purpose, like
Hmm.
people want to play in a guild with a red banner,
Okay.
and if you don't have a red banner, it's
Uh,
much harder to recruit people. And it also puts a lot of pressure on people as well because sometimes people they may have an alright defense team and they may have an okay attack team, but then when something like this, Gen 2
mhm.
relic comes out, when you're literally you need it if you want to sort of remain competitive. And one of the things that I've always been very conscious of when I've played this game is that I never really I hate it when people get sort of or feel pressure to spend money or
Hmm.
to do anything. Like it should be something that people kind of do for fun and enjoyment. And
Right.
um, so when you're in a GVG guild and someone doesn't have any attack decks, it's like, well, you're in effect saying, can you spend $700, at least on
Hmm.
this relic,
Right.
or you have to kind of start replacing people, and that's not a nice conversation to have.
Hmm. I see.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then like competition wise, I know that it's from your perspective, you need to have the red banner so you can recruit better players. But at the same time, I'm kind of curious too. So sort of in order to compete, would you say that the Generation Two relic is absolutely necessary, or have you seen examples where players are still successful in their GVG experience within your guild or within other guilds that could still make it work without the Gen Two relic?
Yeah, I mean, you can still make it work. There are
Hmm.
still decks that can kill. Just
Hmm.
having that gives you so much more options.
Okay.
So, if you're in a team and you've got 15 people who can get 100% kill
Hmm.
on, you know, any color, then yeah, your sort of probabilities of winning are sort of much, much higher.
Right.
So I think, more so than the defenses at the moment.
Hmm.
So I think having a birthright card will block a tech deck, for example.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and maybe some other combinations.
I see.
So from a defense point of view, having that is an advantage. But I
Hmm.
think it's predominantly down to for us anyway. When you're looking at someone, I'd put more weight on the attack decks that they had rather than the defense. So
Okay.
you still want someone. I mean, you don't want someone with 80k defense because that's just.
Hmm.
But yeah, if someone had sort of a defense that was a bit, but they had sort of three teams that could kill anything, then
Hmm.
you definitely look to take them.
Okay. Well, that's really good to know. And so, thanks so much for joining me here. And it's been really great, talking about guild versus guild with you. Just for the, if nothing else, being in one of the top guilds, even though I know you feel like it was a fail, to me, I think, Tree is still always regarded as one of the top guild versus guild, guilds for me. And so hearing your perspective has been really great. And so I think, one of the things I would like to ask is to, you've given me, your thoughts on the, on sort of the evolution itself. And so I guess a couple questions, just a couple more questions. One would be, the latest change to sort of, the whole crystal pack thing where you mentioned earlier a little bit too, where uh, you were able to get the light deck, with some dust, but you got more because you felt it was a good attack deck. But in general, do you feel that the crystal event, sort of the pack, the system itself, would you have preferred that better than the runes? Like from your perspective, which would have worked better, or which is better?
Um, it's hard to say. I think the runes are probably worse in some ways because, um, uh, I mean, we've all been there when you get like nine of one and none of another,
Hmm.
and and I think network acknowledged that system was really, really bad for everybody
Hmm.
when they made that sort of cynical change. So you couldn't see, the number of runes that you had. You had to kind of double click to go in and look.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I feel like it's probably easier to get a card with the way that it's kind of structured now, or
Hmm.
sort of save up over time,
Hmm.
and then kind of go in on an event where you think the deck is really worthwhile.
Okay.
And I think that had always been sort of a complaint in the past where you couldn't really, there was no way to sort of spend a little bit and kind of just bank it, and then when you saw something you did want, you'd kind of be able to go after it.
Okay.
So I think in one way it's good, but I think it's a little bit of a false economy in that the tier you have to purchase to now. So it's not enough to have. So before, you could go and get five Mastercard, five MCs, or five URs,
Hmm.
or a mixture of whatever was going to be the best. But I think with the starring now, like the bar's kind of been raised a little bit, and that you kind of need the pink star card now to like really
Mm-hmm.
make the deck hit. And then it, I think it's going to get to a point where to for for guild versus guild or even events that you're probably going to have to go 2 or 3, and then you need the relic with the 1 or the 2, and then so I think it might appear easier to get a card, but I think kind of your net investment to kind of have that kind of tier 1 deck at the end of the event that
Mm-hmm.
sort of has some longevity, I think is still going to be the same.
I
I
see.
think sort of the way that the Gen 3 was sold initially was whereby you get this pink star card, but once you've got it, it's going to be mega reusable, and it's
Mm-hmm.
and I don't feel that that sort of promise has sort of rung true. The light event that I did play, that deck was it hit like a truck because again, having not played for a while, to jump in and have cards doing sort of
Mm-hmm.
you know like 10 20 billion on turn one.
Right.
Yeah, it's pretty obscene how kind
Mm-hmm.
of the damage required scales up. So and it's a very long-winded answer to your question. I guess I probably haven't played enough to have a feeling either way,
Okay.
but I guess just knowing how the commercial realities of
Mm-hmm.
a business work, I don't think they would ever make a change that would see the revenue reduce.
I see. Well, thanks for the perspective on that. Then, final question. Then, I'd love to hear. If you had to, give an advice to somebody who might be just starting out, or who's kind of feeling around for the game, or who might be just kind of, in the middle somewhere, and they're looking to improve, like whatever the case may be. If you had to give an advice to a player, what would it be?
Probably two things. I think the first thing would be to find a good guild, and by good guild, I don't necessarily mean go out and join kind of Warbeast or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like the people that you play with make such a big difference. Um, I ran a guild for a very long time, and again, as I said, I was very lucky to have a really good council. But I've played with some people who are just you know idiots or sort of really negative, and having a really negative person in the guild is just such a drain
Mm-hmm.
all the time when there's kind of drama sort of happening.
Okay.
So the object of playing a game like this is supposed to be fun. It's
Right.
something of kind of escapism.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you want to do is you listen to someone whining in a guild chat. So
Right.
I think finding kind of a good group of people to play with, and I think that's kind of been the glue that's held this game together, is kind of the community
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of built up around it with sort of with people like yourself. Um, have done kind of a huge amount to foster that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
So I would definitely say that
Okay.
find your tribe, and then so the second thing I think would be just to kind of find the play style that suits you,
Mm-hmm.
um, and in that guild, kind of find people who can help you with your decks. Because when you start, it's kind of so confusing, and this always used to shock me
Mm-hmm.
when when we were top 3 every event, we'd be out kind of actively looking for players who were sort of you know doing well, and some of the people that I'd speak to, which should be doing top 50 in global, but didn't even know how they'd have a deck with sort of relics that weren't even doing anything in it, or
Mm-hmm.
sort of a leader that gave no boost, and
Mm-hmm.
so to make sure that you're getting your most out of it, just sort of play at your own pace, find some people who can give you some advice on sort of how the decks hang together,
Okay.
but also kind of never spend more than you can, like under no circumstances, because I've seen a lot of people who've been kind of overcommitted on kind of buying a deck under a
Mm-hmm.
sense of just wanting to help out, or because it is like gambling, right? You're opening
Yeah.
a loot box, it's
Right.
gambling.
Yeah.
um so, and I work in the gambling industry, so I feel like I can just say that.
Mm-hmm.
The Yeah, so just kind of play within your limits,
Mm-hmm.
kind of grow into the game,
Right.
and find some people that you know are good to play with and can help you.
Okay.
And there's
Well,
plenty of people around.
yeah, no, that's great advice. And so again, like just to summarize here, it's been a great conversation with you. And so again, this is Earl Winterbottom, and he's currently in the Monkey Tree, guild, semi-retired. Used to be a big spender, but he's sort of focused on the GVG here, and he has helped tremendously, with his line group, even though like things have evolved over time, but I know that he has helped out a ton of people, including myself. So I just want to say thanks again. And as the people would say in the line chat, thanks Earl, right?
Thanks, mate. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so that's it for today's episode. Thanks a lot for tuning, everybody, and hopefully you've enjoyed this. This is the mini series where I go out and I talk to different people in the legendary community. Let me know who you would like to hear from or what perspectives you like to hear, about. So this has been a mostly guild versus guild focused kind of conversation, as well as talking to somebody who's been in a game for a very long time. So again, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye now.